Happy Tuesday afternoon to you all. And if you're Catholic, happy Feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Got my light blue there to represent that. What I want to talk about today is the mislabeling of right-wingers as fascists, and also the misassociation of right-wingers as white supremacists. We have to understand that we have a big problem in the United States and worldwide with leftist thinking, which is socialist thinking. And what we've witnessed here in Virginia and Charlottesville is actually the left against the left, but they're different kind of leftists. You'll have the Antifa, who consider themselves anti-fascist, but yet they're using the red and white of the socialist movement, and much of their philosophy is socialist. And the red implies their Marxist roots, which is socialism. It's leftism, like the Nazi flag is even red and white, because the Nazi flag represented the Nazi Party, which was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The word socialist is in there. And socialism is a leftist philosophy. Last I checked, the Nazi socialists were fascists. Same thing with Mussolini's regime in Italy. They were fascists. Same thing with the Eva Perón regime in Argentina was fascism. Fascism is always on the left. It's socialist. And that's why much of South America has socialism as well, because they've had history of dictators running a lot of their lands there. You even look at Bolivia, you still have socialism there. So enough with this right-wing conspiracy. Right-wing philosophies are not socialism, and they're not socialist. And if you look at the Nazi Party, if you're looking at white supremacists, those are neo-Nazis. So in other words, they're socialists. But why are they standing up against the Antifa? Antifa group is a Marxist socialism, whereas the white supremacy or white power groups are Nazi socialism, which go against that. That's why you had Russia versus Germany. They were fighting each other, even though one is communist, which is based on socialism. The other one is a socialist party. So be very careful. Because you're right wing doesn't mean you are a white supremacist. Doesn't mean you are a bigot or a fascist. Right wingers love this country. We are nationalists. Nazis love their country wherever it is that they are, so they are nationalists. So in that regard, nationalists and nationalists can have similar philosophies. As a nationalist of the United States, I want immigration policy enforced. It doesn't matter what country you're coming from, even if it's countries from which my family and ancestry comes from. I want people to come here legally, to follow the law. A white supremacist might also want people to come here based on certain laws and to keep out certain other people, but that's because their skin color may not match what they want in this country. So they may argue the exact same points of immigration, and illegal immigration needs to be controlled and followed by law, but the motivation is different. So if you are a patriot and you love this country and you are right wing, don't allow the propaganda masters, the ones who can use words to paint us as evil people, don't let them associate us with those fascist white supremacy people. I'm not white, so don't call me a white supremacy person. You look at my skin color. I wouldn't be considered white. If I go to the certain areas of the South, I would be considered a dark boy over there. So I'm not white. And I've had a lot of people even consider me Mexican, and I'm not Mexican. My heritage isn't that. And oddly enough, it's people from the left who've done that because they focus on race a lot. I've had a few white supremacists do that as well, but who are also from the left. So it's basically all from the left. All the socialists, all the communists are all about race. And that is not what it's about. It's about us preserving our country here right now. Charlottesville, do I support the rioting of the white supremacists? No. Do I support their protesting? Yes. As long as it's peaceful, they file permits, They can do it. They can be stupid all they want to in supporting white supremacy and believing that they are more superior than everybody else. They have every freedom and right to be dumb. But you do not have the right to topple historical monuments for our country. Even though Robert E. Lee was part of that dumb side that wanted to defend slavery and to secede from the Union, you have no right to topple our historical monuments, no right to remove our historical flags. Those are the identifiers of our history, and they let us know all the bad things that happened in the past so that we're constantly reminded of those bad things and we will never do them again. In your wanting to be avoiding offenses and offensive materials and offensive postings and wanting to remove that stuff, you endanger yourself of making history repeat slavery, because now people will not have it before them and it will be erased from their minds over time. And yeah, you can bring up all these great points of knowledge that you know about these people who are memorialized in these statues. You can come up and give this great verbal history showing your knowledge of it, but that doesn't mean that everybody knows the knowledge of that monument. And if you really want to do something to undermine the evil that's in that monument, build a separate monument that displays what that monument really stands for. Don't tear down the monument. Keep the monument there, but educate everybody what it really stands for. That's true education, and that is true patriotism. Otherwise, you are a fascist trying to control what people learn and say, and that is a no-no in this country. That's not what our soldiers died for in many wars and battles. All the bloodshed for our flag was so that we have freedom to think, to read, and to speak as we wish. Don't have the freedom to hurt others physically. So if you go out and you stab somebody, that's a whole different matter. But your ideas can still cause heart pain to people. But that is still free speech. It protects offensive speech and offensive language and offensive images. But you have the ultimate freedom to avoid those things. You don't have to stand there at the statue. You don't have to go look at pornography. Pornographers have every right. I'm Christian, and I don't like that pornography is out there. And now that I have kids, I don't want my kids to discover that or even to become part of it. Especially I'm having a daughter. My daughter will probably be at risk of that most, because women are oppressed the most in the society in terms of their image. They're constantly picked on about the way they look and the way they think. So a lot of women are insecure. And that's why the feminist movement has taken such root. But in reality, I don't want that for my daughter. I don't want pornography there. But I cannot stop it as free speech. They have every right to do that. And as a parent, I have a responsibility to keep my children away from them. I don't go ripping up newsstands that sell pornographic materials. I don't go tearing down magazines and ripping them out in the streets, or destroying people's computers because there's pornography there. And so the people who want to remove offensive things have to be very careful if you support that, because the things that you don't like can be removed, but then at some point there are things that you like that are offensive to some other people. To me, the flag of LGBT, that rainbow flag, to me is offensive, and I'll tell you why. As a Christian, the rainbow symbol was of God's covenant with his people. And God in the scriptures shows that he does not like that kind of activity, because he allowed the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, where sodomy was taking place. You can look up what sodomy is. I don't need to define that for you. But it is an appropriation. It's a cultural, if you want to use liberal philosophy, the rainbow is a cultural appropriation of my faith. So the LGBT community using that rainbow symbol is a cultural appropriation of my faith, and I find that offensive. Now, why am I not going out and ripping out those rainbow stickers and rainbow flags? Because to me, that's free speech. It's offensive to me, but I support freedom of speech more than I support removing the offense to me. Okay, and that's something that people really need to discover the difference in. Because remember, if you are offended by it and you fight to have removal of things that offend you, you will also now set the precedent for those who are offended by your loves to remove the things that you love. And I love Jesus Christ. I love the crucifix as a symbol of his sacrifice for us as Christians and his salvation for the world. And I would never allow anyone to remove the crucifix from our steeples, from our churches, from our sanctuaries, from my bedroom, anywhere. I would want to memorialize my Lord. Even if it offends you, I don't care. That's something you got to deal with if it offends you. And likewise, if you want to put up your flag that appropriates the rainbow, which is a symbol of a covenant between God and his people, for your sexual deviancy, that offends me greatly, but I would never go and try to tear that down for you. You have every right to fly that flag. You have every right to fly the Nazi flag, which I despise. It's despicable to me because it represents the murder of countless innocent people just because they didn't have the same skin color or sexual preference as you or eye color. Communist flag. How many millions were murdered by the communist regimes, and yet still people are so stupid as to believe that communism and socialism is the best way for our country to flourish. You have every right to be that dumb if you don't study history. I despise the hammer and sickle and that red flag with the gold on it, but you have every right to fly that flag. So think about that. Nationalist conservatives do not allow leftists to label us as racists because we are not. And leftists who want to remove things because you are offended by it do not. As you can see, both of those things harm us, whatever political side you're on. And in the end, if you're an American, you should be seeking the best for America and all Americans. Sometimes that means you might have to give up something in order for us all to have a better utilitarian society. And when you're doing things like toppling statues over, you know what? The Taliban does that. They put dynamite to 5,000-year-old Buddhist statues. I'm not Buddhist, but that's human history now. And the Islamists, Taliban, has now blown up our history, 5,000 years of our history. I consider that our history because I'm a human. When the Muslims topple over statues of Christianity, I'm against that. When they went to Iraq and our troops overthrew the Iraqis, the people went and they tore down Saddam Hussein's statue. That was a little different. It was a little different situation there. That a lot of those people felt liberated from that oppressive regime. Do I still support that? No, I don't. I still think even if you've had a dictator running your country, why would you topple over that statue and let people forget who that guy looked like? I would keep his statue there and I would put a placard telling this guy was a butcher of Baghdad. He murdered a lot of people who were in opposition to him and who were not of the same faith. Do it that way. To me, that is even more damning than tearing down a statue. Leave it there. Let it fester. Leave commentary that everybody sees forever. Don't try to do damage like you're doing, and don't try to get people fired for their political beliefs. That to me is the utmost in stupidity, because then that sets the precedent for all of us to get fired for something we believe in. And you may be surviving right now, leftists, because so far you have a leftist media and a leftist political philosophy in the law that helps you stay employed and gets right people unemployed, or fires right people for their positions. But eventually someday that sets the precedent for, if a right person doesn't like what you believe, they can get you fired. And I don't want that either. I don't believe your employment has anything to do with your political philosophy. And it shouldn't be that way. In fact, employers should not be allowed to judge you based on your political philosophy, unless, of course, it's to control the company as an employee. Yeah, then maybe, yeah, okay, you're starting to run into issues there. So that's what I wanted to cover. Right is not always what they say it is, but right makes right. I don't know, whatever. That was a stupid ending, but the reality of it is, freedom of speech should be protected, and history should be protected. All of that should be protected, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Have a good one. God bless. Happy feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. God be with you all.